All right, today we're going to dive into a really provocative and, let's be clear, highly speculative theory from a scholar named Professor Zhang Shui-King. He has a very different take on the conflict in Gaza. Now, our goal here isn't to say he's right or wrong. It's to understand his framework, the lens he's using to look at all of this. So, let's get into it.
Okay, so right off the bat, a really important disclaimer. We are not presenting this as fact. Not at all. The whole point of this explainer is to break down the professor's argument, to look at the tools he's using to make his case. So think of it like this. We're just trying to understand a very, very different and pretty controversial way of seeing things. So this all starts with a huge, nagging question. You see what's happening, you see the global protests, the widespread anger, and you have to ask, right? Why would any country do things that are almost guaranteed to make the rest of the world furious? It just doesn't seem to make logical sense. And that is the exact puzzle this theory tries to solve.
And the professor's answer? Well, it's a thesis that completely reframes the way you might think about this conflict.
So, what Professor Zhang argues is that everything we're seeing on our screens, all the images of destruction, the siege, it's not actually what's really going on. He believes there's something else happening, a hidden logic driving all of this that's, well, a lot more disturbing.
And here it is. This is his central claim, in his own words. What is really happening in Gaza is a ritual sacrifice. Yeah, that's a really shocking statement. It's a tough idea to even wrap your head around. So to even begin to understand what he means by that, we have to look at the history he's pulling from.
See, to back up this wild claim, he says this kind of thing isn't new. In fact, he argues it's part of a pattern we've seen again and again throughout history.
The professor's theory frames these huge public acts of violence as, well, rituals. He points to examples like the Aztecs, who would carry out mass killings right before going to war, or the Carthaginians, who practiced child sacrifice. Even the Romans, after a big victory, they would publicly strangle the enemy leaders. The key thing in all of these examples is that the killing was public. It was a performance, meant to achieve some kind of social or religious goal.
Okay, so that's the historical backdrop. But it brings us right back to the core of his argument, what he calls the logic of global hate. I mean, why would a modern country intentionally make the entire world hate them?
For the professor, a single number is absolutely crucial to understanding this: 47%. Almost half the entire population of Gaza is under the age of 18. And because of that, he argues that what's happening isn't just a conflict. It becomes a form of modern child sacrifice. It's designed, in his view, to break the ultimate modern taboo.
And this brings him to his next point. The fact that this is all so public, that's on purpose. He basically says, look, if the only goal was to eliminate an enemy, there are way more effective, much more secret ways to do it. But no, this is being done out in the open for all of us to see. So he concludes the goal isn't to be sneaky, the goal is to be seen.
So why? Why do this so publicly? Well, the professor lays out this three-part rationale. Step 1, you create an unbreakable taboo. You do something that provokes total, universal disgust, so the whole world unites against you. Then, step 2, that global hatred actually becomes a tool. It forges incredible unity at home, because now you have a common enemy, literally the rest of the world. And finally, step 3, and this is a big one. It supposedly fulfills a certain extremist religious prophecy, one that says Israel must fight the entire world in a final battle to achieve its ultimate destiny.
To tie this whole wild theory together, the professor uses this one really powerful metaphor.
He pulls this from ancient Chinese military strategy. It's called fighting with a river behind your back. Imagine this. You're a general. Your army is losing, they're scattered, they're about to break, so you intentionally march them back to the edge of a huge river. Now they have nowhere to run. Their choice is simple: turn around and drown in the river, or turn forward and fight like their lives depend on it. Because they do. It's an act of desperation that forces a scattered army to become a single, unified fighting force, and sometimes it leads to an unbelievable victory.
So here's how he connects that ancient strategy to today. In his theory, the river isn't water. The river is that unbreakable moral taboo, the child sacrifice he talked about. It's the point of no return, and the choice? It's not about drowning or fighting anymore. The choice becomes, let the world destroy you or fight back against everyone with absolute conviction. And the desired result, according to this theory, is exactly the same as the armies. A divided, fractured nation is suddenly unified by a crisis it created for itself.
And that brings us to this final quote from the professor that really sums it all up. They want to unite themselves by dividing the world. So in this view, the whole point isn't to win friends or allies. The
The point is to use global anger as a weapon to forge unity at home.
Which leaves us with this final big question, the one at the very heart of this entire theory we just walked through. Is division really the ultimate tool for unity? Can you actually bring your own people together by intentionally pushing the rest of the world away? It's a pretty challenging idea to think about.